Here about a Shabbos Fabrengen, starting 1:30 and finishing approximately around 4 o'clock. No l'chaim, nothing. The Rebbe calls it Aftruken.
What does that mean?
Aftruken means on dry, which is interesting because Bechal the Rebbe Fabrengt, for 20 years the Rebbe Fabrengt the Sukkah. After the Sukkah proved to be too small, and there was already a certain mishap in the Sukkah, so the Rebbe from then on did not want to Fabrengt anymore in the Sukkah. So everybody figured that they're going to have to come up with a resolution what they should do, what should be. The Rebbe says to the ones that are organizing Fabrengen, if you come up with anything, let me know if you have any idea. So one of the ideas was that the Fabrengen should be in Oleteira, on Eastern Parkway near Brooklyn Avenue. Make a big sukkah and the Rebbe will Fabreng there. So the Rebbe says no, he wants it here in the 770 area. Another idea came up, which actually was not an idea that ever made it to the Rebbe, because nobody would come up with such a Afila Chelmer were embarrassed with that idea. And that is that a half of Habreng and a half of Elam is going to be sitting, and the other half is going to come into exchange with the first half. You can just see it happening, yeah. So this also didn't make any sense. So it was left that the Rebbe is not Fabrenging. Nothing happening. All of a sudden, second day Sukkot, we get a word, the Rebbe is going to Fabreng. Where's the Fabrengen going to be? In Shul. What about L'chaim? Afterukn, it will be a dry Fabrengen. In Shul. There was a Fabrengen. The Rebbe spoke about the UN. The Rebbe spoke a Maimer then about Hallelujah Hashem Kol Goyim, how everybody's praising the Jewish nation. And the Rebbe edited the Maimer in Chalamet Sukkot. And that's when the Rebbe made his own UN. The last day Sukkot, Simchas Torah, he called up delegates, emissaries, the Rebbe's emissaries from different countries. Each one of them represented a country, and it was a Freiliche Simchas Torah then. There was a UN. In Tafshin Lamed Beis, a year later, the Rebbe, for that Tishrei, came a very big Elam. A big Elam came from Russia. It was called, I call it the Russian Tishrei. It was a big Elam. Rebbe Zaltzman came, Rebbe Zaltzman, Rebbe Chodaitov, Chacham Refol Chodaitov, Mashiach Chodaitov, all the Chassidim from Gruzia, Bukhara, very big crowd relatively came out in 71, and they came to the Rebbe, Lamed Beis, late 71 for Tishrei. They come to the Rebbe, and the Chassidim from Russia knew one thing: if they need anything, they cannot rely on the Americans, because if they need anything, they were the favorites, the guests. So they're going to approach the Rebbe if they have any requests to ask for a Fabrengen and so on and so forth. So this mice, I heard a half of the mice years ago, then, but now, a few years ago, I heard from Rabbi Begorevich, who's in Kazakhstan. I heard from him the second half of this, the story Beprotis, because he was one of the group. They went over to the Rebbe after the Rebbe walked out from Friday night, Shabbos Chalamet Sukkos, Tafshin Lamed Beis. And they said to the Rebbe that they're asking for a Fabrengen. So the Rebbe said, you're not from here, so you're not familiar that we don't make any more Fabrengens, because there was a story that happened, there was a mishap, and since that accident, the Rebbe says we don't make any more Fabrengens. So they asked the Rebbe if so, let there be a Fabrengen in Shul. So the Rebbe said, this was the Lashon Rebbe, Aftrukn Fabrengt sich nicht. The Rebbe says, on dry, it's not a, the Rebbe's talking about himself. Aftrukn on dry, it doesn't really Fabreng. And then the Rebbe continued, and the Rebbe says, I'm not going to remain indebted. And in addition, it seems like the Rebbe had in mind also Fabrengen at Seischem L'Sholem, a goodbye Fabrengen. But the Rebbe said, tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock Shabbos morning, there will be a Maimer. 9 in the morning. Everybody got up early, 9 in the morning, Shabbos Chalamet. The Rebbe came in before Shachris, and he sat down and he said, a Maimer, El Kachtem Lochem, Bayim Arishon. So this was B'Negia to Lamed Beis, Tafshin Lamed Beis. Now 2 years later was the Yom Kippur War. The Rebbe calls it the so-called the war that began Yom Kippur. First day,
why is it called the so-called war?
The Azay Gerufene Yom Kippur Milchama, the title Yom Kippur Milchama, the Rebbe didn't. The Rebbe said the war that began Yom Kippur, not Yom Kippur Milchama. It just didn't Like the Rebbe said once years earlier, they call them the Russian Jews. The Rebbe's not the Russian Jews. It's the Jews coming from Russia. There's a teichen in that. The Rebbe was uncomfortable with that word. And Chavdala then, it was Shiva Sabatamos, the Rebbe verbringt then, took off the Gzeira from Mashke, verbringt till 7:15 that Shabbos. So the Rebbe said, nicht tun Russische Jiden. Jiden for Russland.
The Russian Jews say when they're in Russia, they're called Jews. When they come here, they're called Russian.
So what happened was, it was the first day Sukkot, and the Rebbe was Mediyah, there's going to be a Farbrengen. It was again a surprise. Farbrengen is in Shul, no L'chaim, nothing. No, it was out of the Sukkah. So we didn't drink anything, no Mazenas, nothing. And not to eat, not to drink. The Rebbe came in a Farbrengen, and the Rebbe in the Farbrengen stressed very much the inyan of making Farbrengens all over. Not just drinks, not wandering in the streets, but Mashpiyim should be Farbrengen. And it should be a molor, it's Farbrengen. The whole world should be filled with Farbrengens. So that's when they really started to Farbrengen the houses, and it became very... This Yom Tov, the first day Sukkot. Shabbos Chalamet Sukkot, we were in for another surprise. 1:30 of Farbrengen. Again, not Shaykh Kiddush, there wasn't Shaykh anything. Maybe people went into the Sukkah to make it, they didn't even have Mazenas and stuff. They went there, the Rebbe came in, the Rebbe Farbrengt. In the course of the Farbrengen, the Rebbe mentioned that the Alter Rebbe writes in the Geras HaKedesh, in the letter quoted earlier, the 26th chapter, that the Lamaila, in the higher spheres and worlds, they are waiting for a Yid in this physical world to clarify a halacha. And this is a big joy in the higher worlds when a halacha, a law, a certain topic in Torah is clarified, then it's a very a big simcha l'mayla, big joy l'mayla. So the Rebbe says, since there is an inyan at this point, the Rebbe says at this stage that we're dealing with, which is Benegeya, the Rebbe says Damascus. It was then the city of Damascus, which they were mamish the war with Syria. Damascus. So the Rebbe says we will Damascus. So the Rebbe says we will discuss this inyan as it is in Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Sod. And the Rebbe discussed it as it's a pasuk in Chumash, in Tanakh, and in the prophets. And then as it is a Mishnah in Masechta Chala, which the Rebbe already made a siyum on that tractate of Chala, Vav Tishrei. 4 days before the war of Yom Kippur, the Rebbe already made a siyum, concluded a tractate of Chala, which is Mishnayos. And the Rebbe gave all kinds of excuses why he chose that Masechta. But after the war broke out, the Rebbe acknowledged that he himself didn't realize, Abba Lepeil, it speaks about two countries, Egypt and Syria. Hamevi, Alexandria, Shebe Mitzrayim, he brought Bikurim, and then it says, Kikena B'Suria, is Kikena B'Parvaria, Shal B'Yerushalayim. It's mentioned, these two places are mentioned, and the Rebbe chose to speak about right before the war. The Rebbe, in his modesty, said it's Niba v'Leyoda ma Niba. That there was a prophecy, and he didn't know himself what he was prophesying. The Rebbe knew well what he was prophesying, because already from Shavous, the previous year, the Rebbe was talking about driving off the enemy. Clearly, the children, the Pi'elim, the Yenkim, that the children will nullify the decrees. The Mela, the Rebbe spoke about all these inyanim, about the Damascus, in all the different levels, and this was one of the reasons of that Farbrengen. So, B'Mela, getting back over here, the Rebbe is saying, She'inyan ha'alocha u'bchinas nasa shelamayla minyan nishma. When we say halacha means nasa, it comes down in a practical sense. Higher than the inyan of understanding. Why? Ki nishma hu meloshen havona. Nishma means understanding. Because the word nishma is, daber no ki shemei avdecha. It's the inyan of understanding. U'bazev sheliyah shakle v'tari v'chilukei de'ez den de'esim Shavous. When it comes to the union of understanding, there's a difference between one and another. And there's conversations, and there could be controversial conversations, and differences in opinion, because one mind is not similar to the other. As the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, the Rein De'esim Shavous, Ein Marisim Shavous, Ein Kilesim Shavous, they're all different. Mashen Kenase, Hupsaka, Alocha, V'gili Rotzen Elyon. The inyan of Nasa is a verdict, a final verdict. A final verdict means that's how it is. It comes down in a psaka halacha, and there's only one halacha. There could be two opinions. Aber dennoch, when it comes down in halacha, it becomes one halacha.